So we are going to be going live with Gary Rosen, who is a local artist based out of New Jersey. So give me one moment here to get Gary connected, and then we will get things. Keep in mind, for the studio visits, there's really three things that we focus on. So number one, we like to talk about the artist's background. Number two is the inspiration. And then number three, of course, is showcasing some of the artist's pieces and their studios. So, Gary, I see you joined. Thank you so much for your. How have your holidays been going so far?
It's been a nice time being at home because I'm able to now accomplish some of my future pending art.
And I think I see the 86 piece behind us. So, anyway, I was just giving folks a quick intro. But I haven't said anything about you yet, other than that you're a local artist based out of New Jersey. So I thought to get things kicked off, I just kind of kick it over to you to tell us a little bit about your background and what kind of led you to become, if it's something that you do full-time, part-time. I know a little from our, but I'd love to share more with the audience as well. So I'll kick it to you. Thanks again.
Certainly. So, so as an artist, this is my second job, okay? So I am a real estate executive for a large real estate company in New York City, okay? And the full-time, part-time job is my art, right? So I kind of got here through an interesting way. So I was at Harvard Art School at the University of Harvard in 1987. So at that time, it was a prominent art school, and it probably is still. And I did graphic design was my major, right? So it was a 4-year, relatively grueling program there. And then the cool thing at that time was that it was before computers, right? So kind of everything you did was by hand, markers and inks, and it's like the whole process was just by hand. It was old school, and that's all anyone knew how to do that at that particular time, right? So it was, by the way, 4 years, 5 days a week of submitting the projects every morning, and then have to go to a critique with your peers. So it was ridiculously important to do good work, or else you really had a bad day. Yeah, you know. So it is.
Oh no, I just said it sounds very intense, and I can't imagine having to do that before computers. I was born in '92, so I've been fortunate. I've had computers my whole life, but I can't even imagine having to do that beforehand. So how did you go from graphic design major, and I love how you kind of channeled it into your second job, but how did you go from that in your first job, or sorry, in your college major, and then transition to corporate America? Because those are two very different things. I think of the arts and corporate America as polar opposites. Maybe I'm wrong, but as a corporate guy myself, I don't think I am. So how did you make that transition?
Well, it kind of was chosen for me. At the time when I came out in 1991, for all of you who remember, it was a huge recession at the time. So it was impossible to find a job. It was certainly hard to find a graphic design job or anything like that. So I just kind of landed in my current role, right? And then we got married. I had kids, and as soon as the kids started to go to college, it freed up a ton of my time, right? So I quickly then looked to see, am I able to create art still, right? And it really happened very, very, very fast for me, Josh. And it actually helped us because you were able to look at cool art on Instagram now at this point, right? And it was so cool to see all of these people creating art that seemed like it was impossible to try to use that, make it at the same time. looked so foreign to me, right? So, and and then it really helped me is because I was able then to look up how to handle things on YouTube. And it completely taught me how to do resin. It taught me how to do anything that I wanted to do was through YouTube. And it was just a real big tool for me. So it was fun. And then the other cool thing is that even as a young artist, was that if you decided to reach out to a person on Instagram, right? And it was to either inquire on the process of their work or the process of the materials, right? They would always respond and they would point me in the right direction and say, here's how I handle this. Here's where you should look to go find out. And that kind of stuff is priceless in terms of finding out how to make your art. How do you find the brand new materials?
There's such an amazing community on Instagram, and I'm still trying to figure out TikTok, but I find the community on Instagram to be so engaging because whenever I talk to artists, and by the way, I found you through Instagram. So Instagram is an incredible tool.
Yep.
I find that I can more easily find artists on Instagram, but I also hear stories like what you're talking about. Look, that's a great transition. Let's showcase some of the art that you've got here so we can dive a little bit deeper into your process and things. Part of why I like Gary's work, and I should mention there's really only one prereq that I have for these studio visits. I have to genuinely like the artist's work. Gary's stuff is so cool. One, I love resin. You've got incredible resin. I've seen your stuff in person, so your resin technique is down pat. But two, his stuff is 3D, and I love three-dimensional things. So I think I see the page 6 piece behind us. Maybe if you could show us a close-up of that, that could be pretty cool so folks can kind of see. And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but
sure.
I believe you're working with wood, is correct? Can you tell us a little bit about like the materials you use and whatnot?
Yeah, sure. So the process so I am a true mixed media artist, okay? So it is spray paint, it's acrylics, it's a process of papers. It could be an ultra thin type of an uncoated paper, all depending on the type of project I am. I'll show you some samples of that. Or it could be kind of like a very heavy high gloss paper. It all depends on the mood of the piece and the style of the piece, right? So over here, by the way, is part of the page 6 series I create. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this from afar. Here's a piece that, sorry, I just got to get the camera angle right. All right, so then here's a piece that is, it was created in October of this year. And then here's a page 6 surfboard, right? So, yeah, something like that, right? There. Okay, so everything is hand-cut wood layered on to a board and then finished with resin. Okay, so like you kind of have this hand-cut wood that goes all the way across, and it's bright and it's vibrant and it's hot pink and it's just super fun in person, by the way. Okay, so that's that, and then the other one is the surfboard. So this was a challenging process only because the shape of this surfboard is kind of like it's it isn't a flat surface.
It's got to be different from working on, I would imagine, like your regular rectangular. I don't want to say canvas because I don't know if you're using canvas, but I guess the question I have: how do you get the resin? How do you get it so perfect? Like, is that just like how resin? Because I noticed like with some artists, the resin has bubbles in it, but with your stuff, you don't really have that effect. How do you get it so perfect? Is that just using a really good resin product, or does it have to do with like how you apply it?
No, it is probably the bane of my existence of being an artist and using resin. It is the most unforgiving medium. It takes countless tries to get it right. It is something, by the way, it can ruin a 20-hour piece
really?
in 5 seconds. It is just, yes. So it's very finicky. You have to learn your techniques. You have to protect the imagery that's on the board before you pour the resin, or else it will seep through. It will cause all kinds of problems like that. And then it's also important to have a well-heated room for 24 hours. You have to keep it almost like a sauna in there. And it has to be hairless, and it has to be free of anything that's floating around in the air. So it's really a process, and it keeps me up all night long because anything can happen. Anything seems to happen late at night, and it's always very frustrating.
So, it's interesting because those are things that, like, we as art lovers, if you will, or even just people that look at art, you never really think of, right? Like, we look at art and it's so subjective, right? And then we look at the price and we never really think of, like, what goes into it, right? You look at the price and you say, is it cool? Is it worth it? But then you think about, like, all the other stuff that goes into it, right? So this business with the resin, heating the room. I'm not saying heating the room's expensive. It's just interesting. Like, I never would have thought you would heat the room to apply resin, but I'm not an artist. So these studio visits are so fascinating because you learn about all these different things. So you've been in situations, it sounds like, where you spend 20 hours on a piece, apply the resin doesn't go well, piece is ruined, you have to start over.
Yes, it is ridiculously frustrating. And even now, I am completely uptight when I'm about to pour the resin. I have protected everything. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I have a checklist. I've done everything I need to do. And it's just one thing will slip through the cracks. And as a person, by the way, who prides himself on precision, is because that's what I am, by the way. I'm very precise on my art. It's put there for a reason. It is perfect. It is perfection, and there is a reason why I've chosen to do something. And that's part of who I am in terms of the look of my art, right? So it is there because that's the way it needs to be, okay? And to have something that's not as good as it needs to be, that's laying on top of the piece, is a real problem for me. It has to be smooth as it possibly can. And it's just a lot of care, and it's a lot of time just learning
that
part of the process.
How about colors you use? I feel like in one of the pieces that you just showed us, it looked like on the page 6, the pink, it looked like it was a little bit metallic-y. Maybe the camera, is that a metallic paint you use? Like, what's the situation there?
So it's like I sprayed the pink paint first, and then I sprayed a glitter paint on top of the letters.
Got it. Only. Cool idea. How do you come up with this stuff? Do you plan it out, or do you kind of just like roll with it as you're making it? You try?
No. It's very well planned out, is because it's in the art that I create. It's not haphazard, as you can see, by the way. It's very just kind of put together, and it has a particular story that I want to tell. And there isn't a lot of kind of movement there.
Where is page 6 from? Is that something that I should know? Is that like a comic book thing? You just like create that out of thin air?
No. Josh, you are a kind of born and bred New Yorker, right? Ish kind of thing. So the page 6 is the gossip page in the New York Post, which is the town's hometown paper, let's say. Okay, it is all of the celebrities, and they get all of the dirt. They get everything that happens in California and LA and in Miami and in London, and it picks everything up, and they have it every day in the Post. Okay, so it's kind of like the quintessential rag to read in the New York Post.
Got it. So after I get a phone call from my girlfriend, she's going to say, "Why did you ask that question? You should know that."
Yeah.
So that explains the comics, because it looks like comics, and I was what that was from, because I thought Page Six comics, but I see it probably plays into. So do you use actual clippings from the New York Post, or are those like that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. By the way, it is. By the way, it's full of great pictures. It's full of great comedy headlines. It's full of just like jabs everywhere, and it's fun to just put those jabs in there. All right, now here's the cool part, by the way. So my first Page Six was 2019, right? The Post saw this online, and they called me up and they interviewed me for Page Six, and then I was in Page Six, right here, okay? And my phone blew up out of nowhere. All of a sudden, it's my CEO friends and it's my CEO clients, and it's everyone under the sun is like, oh my God, Gary, you know. So now then, every time I create a Page Six, I always put me in the Page Six, is because I am a star of Page Six.
I love when art has like these little nuggets in it. So I did a studio virtual an artist that goes by the Instagram handle I am Kavi Kavi, and she puts poetry in her art. But and then she said to me, by the way, I write the poetry myself. This reminds me of that, because you're in the artwork because you're Page Six. So that's awesome. So two things here. Number one, this shows you all the power of social media, right? You made this piece of art. I'm assuming the New York Post saw it online somewhere, right? They reached out to you, and boom, next thing you know, you're on Page Six. And then second thing, you take that, you incorporate that into your pieces. I love it. So just going back to the technique, because I'm staring at you and I'm staring at Page Six in the background.
Okay. I've got so many other things.
So let's actually, you know what? Let's just transition into the other things. Then I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So let's roll.
Sure. All right. So then here, by the way, is a piece. Is a piece. It's part of my camo series of works. Okay. Oh, sorry. So over here, by the way, is a blue and red camo love piece. Okay, so here, so it's
right there.
I like it also, by the way. It also comes off.
You see the 3D right there. So those are letters cut and placed onto the. If it is a canvas, or if it's not canvas, surfaces.
Okay, so here's how I created this. And it took a lot of thought, okay? So the raised up image is one piece of cut wood, okay? So when it's super thin wood, so it's very fragile, it's very hard to handle, and it had to always be handled with care and protected, right? So I'm going to show you a picture. It's on my computer right now, and it will totally show you kind of concepts here.
Oh, right? Very cool. Yep.
Yeah, it's right there, right? Okay, so over here is the first piece. Here is kind of like the cutout of the camo, and then here is kind of like that's the camo. It's the camo board on the back of that, and then here is how it kind of looks as it gets layered on top, and then here's how it looks after the red has been put in. Right, so the whole thing on the camo pieces I create is that the camo flows perfectly between the board and the raised up portion. It always interlaps, and it's always part of the same continuous pattern. As you see, it's in the red, it's in the blues, so it's in the hues are all. So even though the hues are changed inside the color palette, it still continues with the camo look and the camo pattern.
That reminds me of, so one of my friends was telling me with Louis Vuitton bags, you can tell if it's a real one if the pattern continues, and it's a fake if the pattern doesn't line up. So this reminds me of that, because you've got the coordinated there. Do you do the wood cutout yourself, or is that something that you kind of outsource and then bring in at the end and put onto? It is.
It's all me, by the way. So it's all me. So it's a jigsaw
That
and
must take so long.
sandpaper
How long
like
does it
that.
take to do like that cam piece just to cut the wood out? Is that like a job just to do
No,
the wood?
It's about 10 hours of work to do that, to prep it and to sand it and have it be in the form to accept paint the right way, in a smooth way.
So that's another thing people don't think about when you think about like art, what it costs and everything. People don't necessarily always think about how much time and effort goes into this stuff, whether it's a painting or something like this with mixed media. It takes a long time. So it's crazy to think about. You've got the planning aspect, you've got the wood aspect, and then you have to paint it, which I'm assuming takes a long time too, because you probably planned that out, if I had to take a guess.
Yes. So the whole time period on a piece like that is about 20 hours
that is a
for me, by the way.
time.
So that's a long time.
For sure. Well, I don't want to disrupt the flow, so you keep going. What other you got?
Okay. So then here, by the way, is a pink camo piece right there. It's the same kind of concept, and it all continuously flows from the blues to the hot pinks. So I'll show you from the side here. It's all raised up as well, right?
The perfect, no bubble.
Okay. Okay. No, none at all, by the way. This one is flawless as you can get. All right, so then here is a cool piece which you saw. I'm just going to put this over here and then bring this one up. So here is a piece which I created also for Up Ours this year. So it is a logo that I created a year and a half ago. Okay, and it's Inhale, Exhale, except it's in a very graphic design look. Okay, so I'm just going to show it to you, and I'll kind of walk you through everything.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. So it reads inhale as you go across, and it reads exhale as you read back from right to left. Okay. Okay. So in a whole bunch of my work, I like it because I think it creates conversation. Right? Like it's always like, how is that done? How did he do that? How does it just pop off the page? And there's tons of things to look at inside of these pieces, and you cannot capture it all at the same time. You just can't, right? So then the concept here, by the way, is to have a piece which tells everyone to stop looking at your screens, to stop looking at your Hulu and your Netflix and this and that, and open your eyes and look at the positives that's outside your front door. Okay, it's life, it's the vibrancy, it's the great moon, it's the surfing, it's anything that makes you feel happy is kind of here. And it's just about sharing that story and trying to figure out the right way to do it. Now like the exhale, okay, so it was too hard to do it in wood purely because it had to be bright and it had to pop off the page, so right?
That plastic.
So yes,
got it.
Laser cut acrylic.
Yeah, that's a good angle there. Yeah, you could. I like how it's done in the acrylic because it adds more depth to it because you kind of see the colors blending together. When I looked at that the first time, I didn't think inhale, exhale, but it makes total sense now that you've explained it to me. I love it when pieces start conversations, and I think that's a conversation for that. That's like a great piece for an entryway somewhere because people look at it and they're like, what's going on here? So I love that.
Yeah, and it's fun. So the last piece I have here is a similar type in the concepts of what I do, and it's big and it tells a story and it's quintessential New York piece, right? So I'm going to show you here. This is a larger piece for me. This is
big piece.
40 by 40. Okay. So when it says, I'm just going to show it. It says I love LOVE
love it
NY. Okay. So So if you're over here, it is a very thick piece of woodcut. It's a singular piece again, and then I decided to throw in a lot of I'm just going to bend down here. So a whole bunch of comfort imagery of which almost everyone who is in the city has seen at some point in their life, right? So this art piece here, by the way, I chose to use very thin papers, of which I print out in black and white, and then I spray paint each one on its own. And it's purely to have that certain color for each piece of the image, right? So like you have kind of like, you know,
yeah,
her arm there, right? So that the whole thing is sprayed, and it's all just, and it's supposed to be to choose to kind of highlight in a certain way each particular image.
very cool, extremely well executed. I like the detail. So it's interesting because it's like you've got, we'll call them your page 6 series with they're not comics. I guess I don't know what the word is. Then you've got the camo, which is more of like a fine art almost, because you've got such incredible detail going into the back. But what I like is that you've developed kind of like this signature look. By the way, exhale on the hoodie too.
Yeah, I've got merch. Merch.
Yes. By the way, folks, the Instagram for it's just Gary Rosen art, and I'll tag it when I post this. But I think it's great when artists develop like a signature look, and you've got that with like the woodworking and everything, and the way that it kind of goes on. It's very distinct, and it's very recognizable. And I think that's really important, because sometimes you see what artists make and they cross over into things that don't necessarily match up, and there's pros and cons to that, right? The con is that you don't have a signature look. The pro is that you could be a master in different things. But I think what folks are looking for is they want to be able, it's kind of like a designer merchandise, right? You want to be able to look at something and recognize and say, that's by that artist. And I think you've accomplished that. We'll open it up to questions to the audience. And while we're doing that, Gary, is there anything you wanted to address or speak to before we close this out?
No, it's I just kind of think that, as I said prior, is that it's tremendous when the small community is able to help out and to not kind of fear to share the information, right? And it's a process. It's hard to come up. It, by the way, takes me so long to try to have it from my brain of how I want it to look, to have it show up the right way. And that takes me weeks sometimes. And I sit there and I ponder, and I'm up all night. I'm like, how do I figure out the problem? And it's sometimes it happens at 4 o'clock in the morning. But it's something that is just a big process of how it Perfect. Kind of works for me.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. Love is fascinating story, fascinating artwork. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good night.
All right, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.